Imagine you're sitting in a coffee shop, waiting for a friend, when your phone vibrates. It's your bank, notifying you that someone just logged into your account. Seconds later, another notification appears. Then another. Before you even have time to react, your email password has been changed, your banking app is locked, and someone is attempting to transfer money out of your account. Panic sets in as you realize your entire digital life is being taken over. Most people assume a hacker must have used sophisticated software or broken through impossible layers of security. But what if I told you that, in many cases, none of that is necessary? What if the biggest vulnerability isn't hidden deep inside your phone's software, but is actually a setting that millions of people never think about, never check, and often leave configured in a way that creates unnecessary risk? The most surprising part is that changing it takes less than a minute. Yet failing to do so could leave years of personal information exposed to anyone who gains physical access to your device. Your smartphone has become much more than a communication tool. It has quietly evolved into the most detailed record of your life that has ever existed. Think about everything stored inside it. Family photographs stretching back years, private conversations with loved ones, banking applications, saved passwords, health information, tax documents, travel history, work emails, shopping accounts, and location data that can reconstruct where you've been almost every day. There has never been another object capable of revealing so much about a single person. Losing your wallet is inconvenient. Losing your phone, or losing control of it, can expose nearly every aspect of your personal life. That's why security experts often say your phone deserves stronger protection than almost anything else you own. The problem is that most people focus on the obvious security measures while overlooking the settings operating quietly in the background. They choose a passcode, enable Face ID or fingerprint recognition, and assume they're fully protected. After all, if someone can't unlock the screen, they shouldn't be able to access anything inside the device, right? That's the assumption millions of users make every day. Unfortunately, the reality is more complicated. Modern smartphones communicate with other devices through several different pathways, and while those features make backups, file transfers, software updates, and charging incredibly convenient, they also create additional points that require careful security controls. If those controls aren't configured correctly, they can provide opportunities that most people never knew existed. This isn't about creating unnecessary fear or suggesting that every phone is constantly under attack. The vast majority of people will never encounter advanced forensic technology or sophisticated digital investigations. But understanding how your phone protects itself helps explain why certain settings exist in the first place. Every security feature inside your device was designed to solve a real problem discovered by engineers over years of testing, research, and experience. Some of those protections activate automatically. Others depend on choices made by the user. And because most people never explore their phone's security menu beyond setting a passcode, many important options remain exactly as they were when the device first came out of the box. One of the biggest misunderstandings surrounding smartphone privacy is the belief that locking the screen instantly blocks every possible method of accessing data. In reality, locking the display is only one layer of protection. Modern phones also manage how they communicate through charging ports, wireless connections, developer features, and accessory permissions. These systems determine whether information can move between your phone and another device under different circumstances. They exist because your phone must constantly balance two competing goals. On one hand, it needs to be convenient enough for everyday use. On the other, it must remain secure against unauthorized access. Finding that balance isn't always simple, and sometimes the default settings prioritize convenience more than users realize. Another reason this topic matters is because our dependence on smartphones continues growing every year. There was a time when losing a phone mostly meant replacing a list of contacts. Today, it can mean losing access to your financial accounts, identity verification codes, digital wallets, cloud storage, business files, and personal memories collected over an entire lifetime. Many people no longer memorize passwords because their phones remember them. They don't carry maps because navigation apps know every destination. They rarely print important documents because digital copies live inside secure apps. In many ways, the phone has become the master key to nearly every other part of modern life. Protecting it is no longer just about protecting one device, it's about protecting everything connected to it. Privacy experts often point out that security isn't achieved through one perfect feature. Instead, it's created through layers. Each layer adds another obstacle that someone would have to overcome before gaining access to sensitive information. A strong passcode is one layer. Keeping software updated is another. Limiting unnecessary permissions creates another. Restricting how accessories communicate with the device adds yet another. Individually, each measure might seem small. Together, they create a much stronger defense than relying on any single feature alone. That's why cybersecurity professionals rarely talk about one magical setting. They focus on building multiple overlapping protections that work together. As we move through today's discussion, we're going to separate common myths from established security practices. We'll look at the settings many users overlook, explain why they matter, and discuss simple changes that can improve the protection of both iPhone and Android devices. None of these adjustments require expensive software, advanced technical knowledge, or special equipment. They're options already built into the devices millions of people carry every day. By the end of this video, you'll understand not only what those settings do, but also why security professionals recommend reviewing them regularly as operating systems continue to evolve and new features are introduced. Now, before we get into the first setting you should check, there's something most people don't realize about how smartphones are designed. Companies like Apple and Google spend billions of dollars every year making their devices more secure, but they also have to make them convenient enough that millions of people can use them without frustration. That's why many features that improve convenience, like instantly connecting to a computer, transferring photos with a cable, or restoring a backup, also require the phone to communicate through its physical charging port. Under normal circumstances, that's incredibly useful. But in certain situations, that same connection can become one of the most important pathways to the data stored inside your device. The good news is that both major smartphone platforms have introduced protections designed to reduce that risk. The bad news is that many people don't even know those protections exist, let alone whether they're configured correctly. Let's start with the iPhone, because this is where one of the most overlooked privacy features is hiding. Several years ago, Apple quietly introduced a security feature known as USB restricted mode. Unlike Face ID or your passcode, this isn't something you see every day, and it isn't advertised when you first set up your phone. Instead, it works silently in the background. Its entire purpose is to limit how your iPhone communicates with devices connected through the charging port after the phone has remained locked for a period of time. Once that protection activates, the port is essentially reduced to one primary function: charging the battery. Data transfers are restricted until the phone is unlocked again using the proper credentials. From a security standpoint, that's a significant layer of protection because it reduces opportunities for unauthorized access through a wired connection. Here's why that matters. Imagine someone gets temporary physical possession of your phone. It doesn't have to be stolen forever. It could be lost for a few minutes, misplaced during travel, left unattended in a hotel room, or taken as part of an investigation. Most people immediately think about someone trying to guess their passcode, but modern devices are designed to resist repeated password attempts. Security experts often focus instead on limiting every possible avenue of communication with the device while it's locked. The less your phone is willing to do before you authenticate yourself, the stronger your overall security becomes. That's exactly the philosophy behind features like USB restricted mode. They aren't designed for everyday convenience. They're designed for the moments when your phone is no longer under your direct control. Android devices approach this challenge a little differently because there are many manufacturers and software versions rather than a single operating system experience. However, one feature that deserves attention is USB debugging, which lives inside the Developer Options menu. This feature exists for an entirely legitimate reason. App developers use it to test software, troubleshoot applications, and communicate directly with a phone during development. For programmers, it's an incredibly useful tool. For everyday users, however, there's rarely a reason for it to remain enabled after it's no longer needed. If someone activated it months or even years ago while following an online tutorial and then forgot about it, they may have unintentionally left an advanced communication feature active without realizing it. What's surprising is how often this happens. Someone wants to transfer files, root an older phone, recover photos, or follow a step-by-step video on YouTube. One of the instructions says, "Turn on developer options and enable USB debugging." The task gets completed, the phone works perfectly, and life moves on. Weeks turn into months, months become years, and that setting quietly stays exactly where it was. Most people never think to check it again because they assume it served its purpose and no longer matters. Yet cybersecurity specialists consistently recommend disabling developer features whenever they are no longer actively being used, simply because reducing unnecessary access points is one of the easiest ways to strengthen a device's overall security. Another common misconception is that biometric authentication alone provides the highest possible level of protection. Face recognition and fingerprint sensors are incredibly convenient. They make unlocking your phone almost effortless, which is one reason they've become so popular. But convenience and legal protection are not always the same thing. Security professionals often emphasize that your device should also be protected by a strong alphanumeric passcode because it forms the foundation of your phone's encryption. A longer passcode containing letters, numbers, and symbols is generally far more resistant to guessing than a short numeric PIN. Even if you continue using Face ID or fingerprint recognition for everyday convenience, your passcode remains one of the most important security features your device has. Software updates are another area where many people unintentionally create unnecessary risk. It's easy to ignore update notifications because they often appear at inconvenient times. You're busy, your battery is low, or you simply don't feel like waiting for your phone to restart. So the update gets postponed. Then it's postponed again. Before long, weeks or even months have passed. What many users don't realize is that these updates are rarely just about adding new emojis or changing the appearance of icons. A large percentage of updates contain security patches that fix vulnerabilities discovered by researchers around the world. Once those vulnerabilities become publicly known, they don't just become known to the companies fixing them, they also become known to people looking for ways to exploit them. Installing updates promptly helps close those security gaps before they can be misused. Perhaps the biggest mistake people make is assuming that privacy is something you set up once and never revisit. In reality, your phone changes constantly. New apps are installed, old apps receive new permissions. Operating systems introduce additional features. Security settings evolve with every major software release. A device that was configured perfectly 2 years ago may no longer represent the strongest protection available today simply because the technology has changed. That's why cybersecurity professionals encourage users to perform a privacy review every few months, checking permissions, updating software, reviewing connected devices, and confirming that important security features are still configured the way they expect. In just a moment, we're going to walk through the specific settings you should review on both iPhone and Android, where to find them, what each one actually does, and why they matter. Most of these changes take less than a minute to complete, require no technical expertise, and cost absolutely nothing. Yet together, they can significantly improve the security of the device that likely contains more personal information than anything else you own.